So the Vatican is moving to ban traditional Latin Mass being said by diocesan bishops and priests. They want to completely remove the TLM from any diocesan setting around the world. I suppose, does this mean that all those Ecclesia Dei communities are not going to be impacted? I do find it interesting. I just find it very bizarre in this time of the church that they would move so drastically against a traditional Latin Mass. And for anybody saying, oh, this is a rumor, Robert, this is a rumor, and we haven't seen any documentation, I would ask people to read the letter that went with Traditionis Custodes. It already says it clearly there in due course. People have to return to the Novus Ordo, blah, 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 blah. They seem fixated with traditional Catholics when we have such confusion on faith and morals in the church. I don't know where this is going. I honestly don't. Seemingly, once this new apostolic constitution or whatever document that they're planning to publish this year comes out, a bishop won't be able to say traditional Latin Mass, and no diocesan priest will be able to say the traditional Latin Mass without prior approval from Rome. So they'll all have to go to Rome to get approval to say the traditional Latin Mass, and they'll have to give their justifications and God knows what. We're back to the 1970s, to the early 1970s. We are honestly back to the 1970s. I mean, they're going on about people we're going against Vatican II, that this is a problem because the reforms of Vatican II are not being implemented. I mean, all I can say to Rome is get your act in order. Before you come back after reverent masses, get the Novus Ordo in fixed up. I mean, there's a myriad of different ways of celebrating it. There's so much irreverence in the Novus Ordo. There's so much disrespect for the Eucharist in the Novus Ordo. And you're coming after traditional Catholics. You know, it's not to do with Vatican II, it's to do with reverence. That's why most people go to traditional Latin Mass, because they find reverence in the traditional Latin Mass. They see our Lord respected in the Eucharist. He's not handed out like a cookie. You know, you've never seen an LGBT rainbow TLM, have you? And yet, we see what is happening to the Novus Ordo. And there seems this demonic push to destroy reverence and to push what? Look around Europe. Look around the States. Look what Cardinal Marx did. Look. I mean, is the church so deluded they will come after TLM Catholics now, thinking that we're not awake? You know, the laity in 2023 are not the laity of 1970, when the Novus Ordo was introduced. When the Novus Ordo was introduced, most laity obeyed, they accepted, they followed Paul VI, they didn't question. It was a different era, and people accepted and moved on. Today, faithful Catholics are not going to stand by and let Rome railroad us like they did in the 1970s. We're going to ask the questions why. Laity need to stand up and ask questions from bishops, cardinals and the Pope. Why? Explain to us, why has the reverence for the Eucharist been destroyed in the last 50 years? Explain to us why we've stopped kneeling for our Lord during consecration in some places. Explain to us what happened to the Eucharist in the last 50 years, because it was never discussed in Vatican II. Explain to us what is going on in the Roman Latin Rite, where Latin seems to be a dirty word for most of us, for most Catholics. They can't even allow the canon of the Mass, said in Latin sometimes. I mean, I do ask cardinals, bishops, what is going on? What are you doing? Is this what you're focused on? Is this what you're focused on? Vatican II was supposed to be a pastoral council to, help renew the faith, grow the faith. What is wrong with allowing the Vetus and the Novus Ordo into the Missale Romano? What is wrong? I think that Rome really needs to answer some questions, honest questions, like somebody. How can we have faith and morals for 2,000 years that suddenly where are we going? What is the future of the church? What are we supposed to teach? What do we stand for? Is this where the Vatican is going to move? That it will ban the traditional Latin Mass in all diocesan settings, in parishes, in cathedrals and all this, and only Rome can give permission for the traditional Latin Mass to be said? Is this where we're moving? Is this the rumours? Is this document ready to come out? Let's see. Pray for the church. But we want answers. We want answers of what you've done to the Roman Rite. What have you done to the most sacred? What have you done to the Mass? Can somebody explain to us where in Vatican II did it say that we had to destroy reverence for the Eucharist as Latin Roman Catholics? Explain to us. Where in Vatican II did it say we needed to remove altar rails and destroy sanctuaries and refashion altars and destroy tabernacles and move them to the side and all of this? Where in Vatican II did it say that Christ should not be the centre of our chapels? Where in Vatican II did it say Gregorian chant and Latin needed to be removed from the Mass? It didn't. What we've ended up with is a product of a committee set up after. It's not. Is it really? Is the Novus Ordo really what Council Fathers intended? Did all of those bishops get together to vote on the Mass? They didn't. They were presented with a document, and the product that we got, is it what Vatican II intended? So it's not being critical of Vatican II to question what happened to the sacred in the church. And laity are asking questions more and more and more and more. Those of us who love the faith, the few of us that love the faith, laity are asking questions. What happened to the sacred in our church? What happened to how we treat the body, blood, soul and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ in the Eucharist? Is Rome uncomfortable with the traditional Latin Mass because it shows up what you've done in the Novus Ordo? You feel uncomfortable to see the reverence in traditional Latin Mass because it shows up what you've done in the Novus Ordo? Oh, look, we can't have reverence there because it's showing us up what we're doing. We would never have had a rainbow LGBT Mass 50 years ago. It would never have happened in the Vetus Order. It simply wouldn't. And yet today, what do we see? What do we see? Anyway, pray for the church. Pray for what Rome is thinking about doing. And ask bishops to show us what you stand for. Ask them. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.